Mrs Dawson, Mrs Brown, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please silence to the Right Honourable Lord Provost of the City of Edinburgh, Mr Frank Ross.
The first thing I'm going to do is move forward, because every time I come up to stand and speak at these events, everybody backs off. And it's incredibly off-putting, I have to say. It's incredibly off-putting. Anyway, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be able to welcome you here to the City Chambers and to... Do I really need that? Can you hear me at the back? Yeah. Thanks. And especially to the European room, which I have to say is one of my favourite rooms here in the Council. Predominantly because as you go round, starting from the picture behind me round, you have a sort of potted history of Edinburgh and Scotland, from a very young Robert the Bruce to the 1745 rebellion. And if you haven't had a chance to have a little look at the plaques under each of these paintings, I would suggest you do. It's very educational. And that theme of history and what surrounds us also resonates with the very impressive work of the Water of Leith Conservation Trust, who have worked tirelessly over the last 30 years to mitigate many years of poor environmental welfare and improve and reclaim our main urban waterway and its natural surroundings. Now, whilst many environmental projects have come and gone over the years, the Trust has, I would suggest, continued to be a trailblazer, working with an ever-increasing number of public, private and third sector partners to restore and reclaim and re-energise, indeed, the 35 kilometres of waterway. It's amazing it's that long within the city, and the 20 kilometres of walkway that go with that. And once again making it clean, green and above all a beautiful place where families can visit and where nature can grow. And indeed the waterway and the walkway that comes with it continue to be an ever-growing source of education and citizenship, therefore continuing the arc of the waterway's long and varied history. Now, building upon the strong foundations of earlier successes, in year 2000, His Royal Highness the Duke of Rothesay opened the Water of Leith Visitor Centre, which over the last 18 years has increasingly become the hub for the Trust's many operations. And having looked at the figures over recent years, it's quite incredible. 17,000 visitors over that time, 6,300 people attending learning days and events. And in working with young people, a key element of everything that we do these days, delivering 38 conservation tasks. And amongst many of the other titles, I'm also the city's volunteering ambassador, and I'm especially delighted to hear of the active citizenship contributions, which are 5,400 volunteer hours in tasks and clean-ups, which help to improve the water, complemented by over 3,000 hours contributing to other elements of the programme run by the Trust and the Visitor Centre itself. And with the environmental improvements, the efforts of the Trust have seen the rewards, with otters returning and breeding, strong populations of kingfishers, dippers and over 100 other species now enjoying the river across its reach. And indeed, just before we started speaking here, talking to Pat and saying that it was nice to see swans back in the Rosburn area of the Water of Leith again. And as often said by the Trust, the work of the Trust is indeed a silver thread in a ribbon of green. And I would hope that all here today would attest to that apt description. So on behalf of the citizens of Edinburgh and the Council, I'd like to formally recognise and equally thank the Trust, board, staff and volunteers who provide substantive efforts year-round to keep the river and its surroundings in good order and in both positive and challenging weather conditions. I'd also like to add my thanks to Councillor Corbett, who I thought I saw you. Oh, there you are, sorry. You were hiding behind the camera there, which is unusual. Usually you're this side. Just like to add my thanks for the efforts that you put in to help arrange this civic reception to recognise the 30th anniversary of the Trust. The environmental and social improvements levered by the Trust's efforts, I would suggest, be neatly summarised by the fact, as we've said earlier, that otters are back and are now thriving in the Water of Leith. It's a substantial achievement to bring otters back and stands as a testament to the continuing and sustained efforts of the Trust, which is without doubt a leading light in waterway restoration and reclamation. You have all achieved a great deal, and I wish all of you involved in the range of activities which is now covered by the Trust all the best, and future ambitions, continuing success, and in recognising your substantial contributions to the city's improving natural well-being. Once we've all finished talking, there will be a small buffet. I would encourage you all to stay for that. We'll then have a chat, perhaps an opportunity to network and hear more about your individual contributions. However, enough from me. Now to people who actually know about the practicalities and the realities of what's happened on the ground. I'll hand over to your next speaker. Thank you.
We'll take continued silence for the Trust Chair, Pat Dawson.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and many thanks for coming along tonight to this wonderful celebration to mark our 30th anniversary. A very special thanks too to the Lord Provost and his team for honouring the Water of Leith Conservation Trust by hosting tonight's civic reception. It is indeed an honour to stand here as the newly appointed Chair of the Trust, following on in the auspicious footsteps of George Hunter and Ian Anderson, the two past chairpersons and two of the founding members of the charity. Personally, I am doubly proud to be the First Lady too. But really the First Lady is Helen, who we'll hear from next, and she will sketch out our history. Our past achievements have been made possible by all of you here tonight. You have helped in so many ways, with your passion, your vision, your support, your money, and your time as volunteers. I have calculated that the total hours which our amazing volunteers have given since we started is worth over £1.2 million based on the Scottish living wage. That's a staggering amount. Well done all. Our heritage has been built on that generosity, combined with a passion for the river, for its beauty and impact on our well-being, on our young people and our work to enthuse their learning and understanding of the environment and conservation by experiencing the river firsthand, and to the visitors to our city who marvel at its stunning tranquility, its wildlife, and all in the centre of a city. As a trustee of this amazing charity, I am very aware that we must acknowledge our past while also looking to build a sustainable future for our people and our work. We do this in partnership with a number of organisations, and to their representatives here today, I extend our gratitude and look forward to more innovative projects in the next 30 years. From what I have seen and experienced firsthand as a volunteer and trustee, our important work will continue, led by our amazing staff team, supported by our wonderful volunteers, and resourced by continued funding streams. To one and all, we owe you a deep gratitude, and enjoy your birthday party. I can't wait to see what our 40th birthday brings. Thank
you. Ladies and gentlemen, please now welcome the Trust Manager, Helen Brown.
Too many glasses of wine already. It's irresistible. It's free wine. Thank you so much, and what a build-up. I've actually just put together a few slides charting our history over the last 30 years. For those that attended our AGM 2 weeks ago, I apologise. It's kind of a repeat performance, so but much quicker. So 30 years. I've done a sort of infographic here of some of the key statistics that we have managed to achieve in this 30-year history. And you've got to remember as well, we didn't have much of a visitor centre before the last 18 years, so it is phenomenal that we have these kind of figures for schools and community groups and learning. Oh no, that's back the wrong way, sorry. So I think we probably have a fairly romantic notion of what the Water of Leith was like as a river. You know, somewhere where children could play, the light would trickle and, you know, dance off the undergrowth. I think it was Edinburgh's main sewer. Let's put it that way. 70 plus mill sites dotted up and down the river, glue factories, skin works, tanneries, breweries, distilleries, goodness only knows what. We can only imagine what the river and its quality was actually like. By the 1960s, that was starting to improve. Organisations were starting to look at the river as perhaps a bit more of an asset. And when the last mill burnt down in 1973, I think we realised that it was time for another future for the Water of Leith. This was not what the citizens of Edinburgh wanted to see on their doorstep. So, the Water of Leith Conservation Trust was born really out of two forces coming together. In Slateford, there was a chap called Nora and David Donaldson. Nora and Douglas Donaldson. And they saw this crumbling Slateford schoolhouse as a potential local history centre, and they were working within the Chester community and the Slateford community to try and build something up from the centre. And then there was the people that were beginning to walk along the Water of Leith. There was the Walkway Trust had set up various different sections of the path, opening up the river to the citizens of Edinburgh. But when the citizens experienced the river, unfortunately it was blighted by fly tipping and littering. So there was effort was needed to clean up this dirty river. So we were launched to this day, 21st of November, 1988, in the Dragonara Hotel. But we thought, seeing as that's some, I don't know, a travel lodge now or something, this would be a much nicer surroundings for it. And Lord James Hamilton launched us, and then soon after, Michael Rifkins, this is like a sort of political backlash here, opened our visitor centre in, the Heritage Centre in Slateford. So from this point onwards, the Trust's founding fathers and mothers came together to try and get projects going, try and get education work going, trying to get volunteers going, trying to gather this heritage, this information that was starting to be burnt down and lost through development, the milling past of the river. These are some of the key players at that time. I think probably the two most key players, however, were Graham Priestley, who later became, he was one of our founding trustees, later became our volunteers coordinator, and Susan Warren, who was actually our second member of staff, but stayed with the Trust for over 7 years and put together the Millennium Project bid. So those were really the kind of the founding fathers of the Trust. Early projects that we got involved in, an integrated action plan for the river, was very important to what we were actually going to do to sort out this river. And there's a copy there, if anyone, particularly from Royal Tourism's Trust or anyone wants to see what an old management plan used to look like. We produced a walkway guide, we put interpretation signs, joined in the Festival for the Environment, which Edinburgh used to hold every year for about, and that's what launched some of our early work, which is cleanups. And Chris Sealer, I don't know if, is this you?
Yeah.
Is that Chris? That's Chris. Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? 1991 you was pulling rubbish out the river first. Same Jill Smith over there as well. Original picture. So our first annual clean-up was in 1991 and we started to do it every year since. Now we do obviously a lot more than just an annual clean-up of the Water of Leith. And we began to use education resources along the river. Just check out those 80s shell suits. Should go back to that style. I think the next landmark in the turning point in our history came a decade after we were created, in 1988, when we signed a contract for the Millennium Project, basically a £5 million project to create the continuous walkway from Ballana to Leith and to renovate the visitor centre. This is us signing the contract on that. Taking on a £5 million project for really what was a little more than a Friends of organisation was quite a big deal. Also in that year, Philippa MacDonald joined the team. She's around here somewhere. I don't see her, but she is. Seconded to us from Education Department with the Council to develop up an environmental education programme along the river and for the city. And I'm pleased to say Philippa retired a few years ago, but she's now joins us as a trustee. And so we got the money, we had to shut the centre, we had to renovate this old building, essentially saving it from destruction. and creating the centre that we have today. Quite interesting to see those pictures. And in 2000 it was almost done and we were almost ready to launch when the great flood hit. April 2000. This is the Mark I walkway downstream getting completely washed away, giant boulders. If anyone doubts the power of this little river, that's a picture to keep in your mind. But undeterred, just a matter of 5 weeks later, the visitor centre was opened, even though the water had actually come in through the front doorstep. Prince Charles formally opened the centre in May 2000. And then followed a series of important visitors, the Lord Provost at the time, Eric Milligan, who joined us, and many other people came to see what all the fuss was about. Also in 2000... Our two most long-serving members of staff, Kit and Charlotte, joined the team. I think Kit kind of was in for a birdwatching class and just got sort of like, would you like to just join us and stay and we'll pay you? Something like that. And Charlotte, I believe, was newly graduated as a master's student from Edinburgh University and came in and said, "Have you got any work?" The rest is history, shall we say. So 2001, we'd opened the visitor centre. Was a very busy day. The Watermills book was published. We'd led over 3,000 school children through the education service. The missing link between Slateford and Gorgie had been opened, and the Lord Provost walked the whole 12 3/4 miles down the newly completed walkway. I don't know if you fancy a long distance walk. Yes. We've got new sections, hopefully. It is, all the way. And then I joined the Trust. 2002. I came along, too young to really gloss over those. So 2003 this brings us to. So we had a fantastic visitor centre, we had an open and accessible walkway. But I think really we'd probably turned our back a little bit during that time on the main issues for the river, which had started to ramp up. The water quality was improving, but the littering and the fly tipping had just got to epic proportions. So this is where we really needed to turn our efforts. This is where our volunteer force was deployed, as well as at the visitor centre, because we needed to build that up as an asset. And it's quite remarkable when you look at these pictures of what the back of Bushy Cash and Carry used to look like and what Leith used to look like, and consider how clean it is today. Nicole joined the team. I don't think Nicole made it, actually. I haven't seen him, which is a shame. But he joined us and took over from Graham as volunteers officer. Sadly, in 2004, Graham died, and this was a huge loss for the Trust of knowledge and inspiration and leadership. And he was very passionate about the milling of the river as well, so we built Graham's Garden in his honour, which was actually started off a whole series of garden and habitat improvement projects down the river. So then followed many years of practical works and cleanups, and from doing kind of maybe a dozen cleanups in April 2000, we were now doing 50 a year by 2006. Bill, there's a few pictures of you there, I noticed. Do you remember your clean-up hats you always used to wear? And literally in those days, we would get the kitchen sink on the clean-ups, as you can see from the top picture, and the ironing board, and the microwave oven, and all the tiles. So it's literally pressing the buttons. Barry, I think that's you there. I bet your son's significantly bigger than that nowadays. 2 decades after we left, as many people has alluded to, the Otter returned to the Water of Leith. And as a conservation organisation, I think this is the best testament of what you've succeeded in what you do. If your top predator returns, basically you've done it, and that's why you've all got a little otter given to you tonight, because that really is commemorating the work. And we've had otters breeding on the river continuously ever since, and that is the most important part of our work. And that's actual baby Water of Leith otter, their baby otter in the corner there. And this is the other one as well. Very, very beautiful. So around that time,
we had a tree join.
Staff joined the team. Sandy came in 2007, and then Ruth, our teacher, joined us in 2011 as Philippa retired, having run the education programme for over 11 years. You can see we do last ourselves. And many of the lovely people have come and gone, but you see the pictures Ben and Emily certainly here today that the volunteers will remember, but these other guys will come on work placement students with us for 6 months at end, and they were fantastic fun to have around. I can't go tonight without mentioning George Hunter, our chairman for 27 years. Sadly, his health is such that he didn't feel able to come out this evening, though he would have loved to have seen you all here. And in fact, Bryce is videoing, hi George, in order to be able to send George a video of the proceedings. Most of my pictures of George you can see are him receiving certificates or giving certificates. So he's very, very well awarded and rewarded chairman over the years. And this is a picture of our trustees in 2016. Obviously we look a little bit different now. We've had a few reshuffles since, and obviously a new chair. So I have to thank all the chair. We've got a few ex-trustees with us here this evening, and a few that unfortunately are no longer with us. But this is the backbone. If the staff are the lifeblood, then this is the backbone that keeps the organisation going. And naturally, as an organisation that's been around for 30 years, we will have lost many of our friends along the way. And these are just some of the awesome gentlemen that have gone. The gaffer George, particularly in this bottom corner here, many of you will remember. And the one in the middle there, that's Lawrence Walker, the 8th generation miller of the river, the last miller to die on the Water of Leith. Just wonderful people. My final words, I actually want to bring us back into context and talk about our relationship with City of Edinburgh Council. Through lean times and great times, this is Caroline, who is our officer for the Water of Leith here. I see times are that tough, she's attacking to get the pound out of the trolley. very, very strongly as well, yes. I just absolutely love that picture. But we have had a fantastic relationship with the city for many, many decades, well, for all the decades of the Trust. Obviously, George was a councillor as well, but our local council has always been supportive, and we're grateful to the work that Gavin puts into the organisation today. But it's at the officer level that we work so closely with planning department, environmental, children and families, with obviously the Natural Heritage Service. And it's these people that we work with, and they give us the jobs, and we get the projects done, and everything can be integrated and working together. And I think without that approach, if we ended up pulling, cheek by jowl, and we've gone, oh, we want to do this, and they want to do that, it just wouldn't have worked. And I just, because quite a few of those people are here today, and I'd like to thank them for their contribution to, how we've worked as an organisation. And I think to that end, I will just pass over to our Gavin, our local councillor, to say a few words as well.
I think I'm last up. I'm conscious I'm keeping you between a buffet and replenishing my glasses, so I will be brief. As has been said a couple of times, I'm lucky enough to represent, along with David Keane and Andrew Johnston, the area, the ward in which the centre sits, although of course the river covers the whole of the city. And I do think I'm the luckiest councillor in Edinburgh. Not only the Water of Leith, we've got Easter and west of Craiglockhart Hill and the canal, all in that very small area. And I know you've seen quite a lot of photographs of George Hunter. I'm sure George, if he was here, would have said exactly the same when he was representing the area. And George has been very generous, although not too generous, with his advice to me, which is just the right balance. So I'm obviously delighted to be here to celebrate the 30 years that the Trust had. It's also very interesting because Charlotte, where are you, Charlotte? Wave your hand. I've known Charlotte for about 7 or 8 years. It's the first time I've never seen Charlotte with wellies on. In fact, Charlotte lived just around the corner from me, and when my kids were wee, they were quite surprised to see Charlotte walking into a house, because I think they assumed that she lived in a burrow next to the river. I think they meant that in a positive way. She does. I see that not to embarrass Charlotte, but clearly we've had that effect. But merely to kind of illustrate what an organisation the Trust is, because anyone who's into the centre and meets the trustees, or the volunteers, or the staff there, immediately feels welcome. It's an open organisation, and its focus is on getting things done. And quite a lot around the room I can see people that I recognise more with a grappling hook in their hand, or a litter picker, or a shovel. And I think that's testament to the kind of organisation it is. It gets things done. As you can see from tonight, the impact's been immense. And I think we've all worked in jobs or projects or in organisations where everyone's working hard and conscientiously, but sometimes you get to the end of the day, you're not quite sure what the impact's been. Well, I think you can never say that with the trust. If you go out on a volunteer day or a litter pick or a community event, you can see the impact that it's had day by day, but also, as you see tonight, over 30 years. And I think, as everyone's said tonight, it's not just the endorsement of people saying that. I think the ultimate endorsement is that of the kingfishers and the herons and the otters, because they don't make up false flattery, they don't say things just to be nice. Their endorsement is a genuine one, and I think that's probably the most sincere endorsement of the last 30 years you can have. So really just to say thanks, as somebody who lives in the community and relishes in having the river on my doorstep, thanks on behalf of the city for 30 years of great work, and let's have many, many more years ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to finish off the speeches, the Lord Provost is about to propose a toast to the Trust. Thereafter there will be some food and refreshments served, so please enjoy the rest of your evening.
There's no need to encourage people to charge their glasses. I see you've already managed to do that. You know, Helen's... Scrub that for the video. So I mean, some of this has already been said, but just to formally, as part of a toast. The toast is to, as I've said earlier, and I think in all the speeches, it's okay, you've got time. I'm a slow long speaker. To congratulate the board, to congratulate the staff and the volunteers of the Trust for their substantial contributions to the well-being of the city, and that's those people who are with us today and doing it today, but from those people who've been there for the whole of the 30 years and the whole variety of people that have come through the doors over that time. To also wish the Water of Leith Conservation Trust congratulations on reaching 30 years. People might think that reaching 30 years just happens, but actually in organisations like this, which are volunteer run, 30 years just doesn't happen. There's a lot of hard work to make organisations exist and be sustainable over a long period of time. And perhaps the most important element of it, continued success for the future in order to maintain the Water of Leith and in fact improve and develop it. So ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to raise your glasses and have a toast to the Water of Leith Conservation Trust.